Awesome. So today I'm just going to talk to you about some experience I've had with just marketing myself and just how to apply if you don't fit the required major. So just a roadmap of what we're going to be talking about. I'll give a little background information about myself, give a couple of like real life job examples, some tips and tricks, and at the end we'll have time for questions. So a little bit about me. I'm a fifth-year biomedical engineering major. I'm graduating in May. So my suite involvement includes having multiple chair positions, attending some conference, just overall being an involved member. And so I've had multiple examples of engineering experience. I've been on a 3 rotation co-op with the same company in the same department, which is a really cool experience. And then I was supposed to have an internship the summer of 2020, but because of the pandemic, it was canceled. But I still received an offer for it, which is still a big accomplishment. And so throughout this presentation, I just want to go through some job application examples. These are actual jobs that I applied for and received offers for. And just to show you that while I did not fit the major, I still got the job. And so here's the first engineering application. And it was for my co-op. It's mainly for like an entry-level co-op position. I received this during my sophomore year. And so the first thing that you kind of notice when you're looking over this application is that it says mechanical engineering. I am a biomedical engineer. I am not a mechanical engineer. So like looking at this, I'm like, why should I even apply? I don't fit the major. But if you go through this application, you'll find that a lot of skills here are from people who don't necessarily have that mechanical engineering background. So if you just want to take a second, look through this, and just type in the chat of some skills that you see here that you have, even though if you're not a mechanical engineer, or if you are a mechanical engineer, what skills you think that other people might have that aren't in your major. Yes, Excel skills, SolidWorks, and Minitab. Yeah, both of those are great examples. Critical thinking, yes. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some of the skills that while I was looking through this, I had. So one big thing is that even though it did seem mechanical engineering, it also said related discipline. This is very important because especially during your freshman, sophomore years when you aren't in your major or you're just starting to get into your major, you have a lot of skills that a lot of engineers also have. You take a lot of entry level skills. So even though you may not be mechanical engineering, I know a lot of the classes that I took as a biomedical engineer related very much to mechanical engineering and were classes that my other fellow mechanical engineers took. Another thing that I saw was, as I think it was Jill said, strong analytical, critical thinking, and problem solving skills. These are skills that you learn in your freshman engineering class, whether that's through like working on the lab reports, all different exercises, just learning how to code takes a lot of analytical and critical thinking skills. You also learn a lot of problem solving skills in your other engineering courses as well. Excellent communication skills, written, verbal, and presentation. In your freshman engineering classes, I know the second semester we did a lot of presentations. A lot of times in your other engineering classes, you have to do like a group presentation or an individual presentation, writing lab reports. That's a communication skill. Everyone here has written a lab report. Ability to work in a team environment. A lot of times, almost all my classes have some sort of group project. That is a team environment. Even if it is a small one, that's something you can touch upon in an interview. Use of Microsoft Office tools with Excel, like Emily said. And part of your freshman engineering classes, you learn how to use Excel. I know when I took general chemistry, you use Excel to make graphs. A lot of other classes, you use Excel and other Microsoft tools as well. So it's a lot of stuff that qualifications that overlap between a lot of engineering disciplines. SolidWorks or Pro-E or some sort of CAD capability. We all learned SolidWorks in our second semester freshman engineering class. So that's a skill that we all have. And then Minitab software. Even though I don't think Ohio State teaches Minitab, but I know in the B&E department, they teach us some sort of stats software that may be similar in other engineering disciplines. I can't speak to that. But I know that a lot of times, like, they will teach us some sort of stats software. So even though it may not be the specific one they are asking for, a lot of them function very similarly. And even just taking a stats class, a lot of that stuff correlates to using a stats software, and using a stats software is a lot easier than actually performing the stats. So it's a really good skill to like overcome, to like lead into that. So as you can see, even though like not a mechanical engineer, but we have all of these skills that the job application asks for. And during my interview, I highlighted on all of these. I'm like, yes, I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I have skills X, Y, and Z that you listed in your application. And so one of the reasons why I think I got the offer is because I was able to highlight that I had all of these skills, even though I did not have the major. And so here's another application. This is the one that I applied for my internship and got it. Again, a big one with this one is that mechanical engineering. Now, this application does not say related discipline. So this is also a big like kind of setback for me. So I'm like looking at, I'm like, ooh, mechanical engineering. They specifically want a mechanical engineer. So should I apply for it or not? But again, looking over the application, there is still a lot more responsibilities and position requirements that are here. So again, just looking over this, type into the chat, what do you think that either you see or you think someone else might have that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a mechanical engineer? Yeah, research lab experience, CAD and simulation, technical writing, yeah, all of those are definitely skills that you may have. And so since this was I got this offer after my co-op, I had a lot more experience than I had from that first application that we saw in the previous slide. So for me, creating and implementing mechanical test plans. As a mechanical engineering co-op, I made sure that like during my co-op, I was making test plans now for like our mechanical products. Monitoring mechanical testing. I know a lot of times like I would write the test plans and then I would implement them. So I was doing majority of my time on my co-op was testing different products. And so whether that's from like running the tests, monitoring them, all of that stuff, like I was heavily involved in that. Extensive research. Now this is more broad, but I feel like you could like flip it to match what you want. So I know in a lot of like my biomedical engineering classes, we do a lot of like research projects and case studies. So a lot of times I'll have to do a presentation where I have to solve a problem. So like in my biomaterials class, I had to do a lot of extensive research on different materials, try and figure out what would work best. A lot of times you'll do different like research projects, or even just like looking up information. And so extensive research, like we probably all have done that for some sort of class. Again, with the Microsoft Excel skills, data analysis. And so even if you're not working in a research lab, you probably have done some sort of data analysis, whether that's in like your general chemistry classes, or even in like your lab classes that you've taken through your major. So I know for like my biomedical engineering classes, we've had a couple of like experimental projects. We had to design an experiment and then implement it and then write a report on it. And so some of that does involve data analysis, doing even something simple as like finding like an average or a mean, or like doing some very small stats analysis. That is data analysis. Strong writing skills. So again, with that technical writing, when you're in all of your classes, normally, even if it's gen ed or when you're engineering classes, you're either writing like a lab report or a paper or something of that sort. So that is a strong writing skill. Research and lab experience. I know not a lot of people have this experience. I know like I have a little bit of it, but not as much as my other friends or like other engineering friends. So if you do have this experience, like make sure to talk about it. It's definitely something to be proud of, especially because like undergraduate research, from what I've heard, is amazing. And so make sure this is like on your resume and that you can talk about it, because it is something that's very different from like engineering, and it's another way that you can showcase your skills. and again with the CAD experience desired. And so that CAD's a very broad term that includes SolidWorks, which we all learn. And so now you've kind of gone through those two kind of like case study scenarios. I just want to give some like overview of like some tips and tricks, kind of we've already discussed, but just kind of like wrap everything up. So the first one is just tailor your resume to the position, whether this can be like adding specific skills, experiences, or classes. I know especially for like a lot of like underclassmen, like freshmen and sophomore, you may not have like everything that you have to like meet the resume, to meet the position, but you do have specific skills. Like a lot of ones that I talked about are ones that you learn your freshman year. So that SolidWorks, that Excel, that technical writing, all that stuff is very important. Specific experiences, so that could be like your research, working in a lab, experiences that could be like through SWE, like attending conference. That's a great experience. Attending any other like big events through SWE. Specific classes, especially if the application asks for specific classes, make sure you put them on there, especially if you don't put the major. Can they see like, oh, like they don't have the major, but they did take that class, which is what we asked for. Reference relevant experiences in your interview. So like same thing with like tailoring your resume to the position, tailor your interview to it as well. Mention previous internships and co-ops that are relevant. I know with my experience, like I'm applying for these mechanical engineering positions, I have that mechanical engineering experience. And so I want to make sure that I am highlighting that to make sure that they know that I am a good fit for the position. SWE leadership roles and other clubs and experiences, no matter how small, you're still involved. I know when I was a sophomore applying to my co-op position, I wasn't really involved in SWE. I had a chair position, but that was about it. I know a lot of like underclassmen, that's when they really start to get involved. And so even if it's just like being part of the Big Little program, being a chair position, or just you're actively involved attending a bunch of events, like companies like to hear what you do outside of school. Even though SWE is kind of like part of school, it's still it's not academia based. And again, previous classes, they might say, oh, why do you think you have this skill? Or like you mentioned this on your resume, you can be like, oh, like I learned that in this class, or I have this SolidWorks skill because I learned it in this class. I have this stats knowledge because I took a class about it. And so it's all about tailoring to what you want the company to know about yourself. And then always like easier and said done, but be confident in yourself. Like you have done all these great things. And even though like you may not match what the company wants, like you match 90% of it. And if the one thing you don't match is your major, then that's okay. A lot of times you'll go into like your job and you don't do anything that's engineering related at all. You know, a lot of times, like a lot of engineers are going to like manager positions or consulting, where like you don't really use engineering. So while it's like a great foundation, just making sure that you're confident in what you know and the abilities that you are able to bring. And finally, just apply to everything. That's something that I've like really struggled with, but a lot of advice that I've gotten from recruiters, families, and friends is just to apply to everything. Even if you don't fit the qualifications, the worst they can do is say no, or like a lot of times, like I've applied for a position for like the summer, and that summer in July, I'll get a rejection offer. Like I didn't get the rejection letter. Like by the time it's like halfway through that, like what it would be that position. And so like the worst they can do is say no or just not reply. So you're not losing anything. The worst you're losing is the 5 to 10 minutes that it takes to apply for that job. And also like going back to being confident, the way to become confident is to practice. I know a lot of times that like I've like gained my confidence is through practicing, and it's like that feeling where you like you know you need help and just need not to be afraid to ask for help. I know like through this I'm still looking for a full-time job, and I have family members who work in HR. So I've reached out to them and actually set up mock interviews with them to help me see from like an HR perspective, like what I've done right, what I've done wrong, and like what I can improve upon. And even in like, you don't have family connections like I do, ECS has mock interviews, and a bunch of resources. I know like through professional development we have a lot of mock interview sessions. I think Emma just talked about one for Ethicon, or I think I saw in the newsletter that was just sent out. So like there are so many resources available to you to help improve, and even just asking your fellow SWE members. I'm sure a lot of the upperclassmen would be more than welcome to help you out with like resume reviews, mock interviews, or anything like that. And so just like the main things that like being confident in yourself and just apply to everything, because it doesn't take much time, and like you would rather spend that 5 to 10 minutes and apply than sitting with this like regret and guilt of like, well, I didn't apply. Should I have? Like, what would have happened if I did? So it's all about just taking those opportunities that you have. And so that's all I have. I saved a couple minutes for questions. Here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out and let me know if you have like any other questions or any more advice. Like I said, like I'm still like struggling through this as well, like still like looking for a full-time job, but like I've gotten 2 positions where like I haven't met the major, but like I have all the other skills. So just knowing that even though you don't fit the major, you do have the skills and like you are qualified for any position. So, thank you.
I have a question, Harper. So a lot of the stuff that you had, like you showed the whole position listing and like if you're submitting the application, but do you have any experience doing this like live at a career fair? So what would your, even if not, like what would your suggestion be for us walking up to someone and they're like, well, sorry, we're not looking for your major. Like what can you do in the moment?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of what I've done is like I've really tailored my elevator pitch to that company. So I'll be like, hey, like I'm Harper, 5th year, I'm a biomedical engineering major. Even though I have this major, I have a lot of mechanical engineering experience. And I start to list off that experience. So right off the bat, like I make sure to explain that, yes, I am this major, but I have everything that you're looking for. So I think just being very upfront, and then you do everything you can to show them that you have what they want. And even if they still say like, I'm sorry, we're only looking for mechanical engineering majors, after you've explained all that, you can say yourself like, well, like I tried my best, maybe this isn't the company I want to work for, because they only see a title, they don't see the skills I actually have.
Thanks.